Today we are going to be taking a look at the Acer XR382CQK ultra-wide monitor. If you remember a couple of months back, I featured this monitor in my 1080 Ti ultra-wide gaming performance video, as well as my Ryzen workstation setup. But today we will be focusing on this 37.5-inch monster of a panel that's rocking a 21:9 resolution of 3840x1600, which is certainly welcome for a display of this size, bringing the pixel density to 110 pixels per inch. That's incredibly important because it means we won't need to rely on any additional application scaling. At 110 ppi, you're really hitting that sweet spot just like we see on 27-inch 1440p monitors. There is a very nice looking metal stand here with feet extending from the bottom. Above those, there is a small cutout to help with cable management, and that is certainly appreciated. The back has a matte plastic finish with a removable panel that covers up the available connectors. For those, we have DisplayPort in, DisplayPort out, 2x HDMI, a headphone jack, USB Type-C, and a 4-port USB 3.1 hub. I found the USB ports very easy to use, but the other connectors are all facing downward from underneath the display and can be rather difficult to access. You can make adjustments to the stand in the form of tilt, swivel, and height adjust, but there is no ability to pivot the display. This would have been appreciated even if just a few degrees was offered to help in leveling out the display. Lastly, the stand does have a much-needed handle for when you lift the monitor that comes in at just under 11 kilograms. The panel itself is IPS, which will deliver accurate colors and broad viewing angles as we've come to expect from monitors with in-plane switching technology. Straight out of the box, the monitor was calibrated perfectly and required no adjustments from me to make it ready for use, although there is a lot of options built into the on-screen display if you want to get in there and change things up if it's not to your liking. Controls for this were very simple to use, as Acer opted to use a joystick on the back here, which is always good for menu navigation. And thanks to supporting true 10-bit color, the display had some of the most accurate colors I've seen up close, with the sole exception being HDR. So this should be excellent for video editors like myself or anyone that needs to do color work in Photoshop at a granular level. With a 5 millisecond response time, there was a small amount of ghosting present in some of my test photos that I took, but 0 dropped frames, which is good. The ghosting was not something I was able to personally notice while playing fast-paced games, but during these tests it was rather apparent. At 5 milliseconds, I think we are just on the edge of being acceptable for a gaming monitor. Obviously, 4 milliseconds would be better, like on other IPS displays we've seen in the past from Acer, but it's not enough to make me write this monitor off as being good for gaming. Speaking of gamers, you'll be happy to know that this monitor is 75Hz and does support FREESYNC, although at a somewhat limited range of 48 to 75 frames per second. Having a slightly higher refresh rate over 60 does help in smoothing out gameplay generally, but you will need a very powerful graphics card to drive demanding games at 3840x1600. Back in my comparison of the 1080 Ti and the GTX 1080, it showed that you really need 1080 Ti level power to drive this display for games, but being that it's an NVIDIA card, it omits the ability to take advantage of FREESYNC. And as of this moment, AMD does not have a GPU to directly compete with that card, but I believe that will change in the coming months as we expect Vega to release. I was able to play less graphically demanding games like Overwatch on my RX 480 GPU, and as long as the frame rate stayed between 48 and 75, it was buttery smooth, transitioning between frames like a champ. If we had a wider range, then this would aid in AMD's low frame rate compensation taking effect, but unfortunately we do not. I did run a few image tests just like we always do in monitor reviews that I'll share with you now. In a mostly dark room and my camera set to a shutter speed of 1/400th of a second and ISO at 1600, I took these photos and you will see that there is no presence of backlight bleeding at all with an all black screen, so kudos to Acer for that one. White uniformity was even across the entire display, even in the furthest corners, and lastly, I ran tests for gradient and color banding, of which it passed both without issue. See, I avoided saying flying colors there. The speakers for the monitor are located at the bottom, along with LED lights that can be changed in the on-screen display or disabled entirely if you want. The speakers were actually surprisingly good here for built-in monitor speakers and should be perfectly adequate for use at the desktop and watching movies. But for gaming, I would probably still recommend a good pair of headphones or a headset or maybe external third-party speakers. Overall, though, I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with this display. Gaming in ultrawide offers an experience unlike any other and can even give an advantage in some titles. And the curve on here also really helps in bringing the image in for the end user. There are many cases I can think of where a curve is needlessly added to a display just to kind of check a box off, but that was not what happened here. With an ultra-wide 38-inch monitor that is going to be within a few feet away from your face, it's 100% necessary to have the curve in this particular situation. Outside of gaming, I did use the XR382CQK for content creation, and having the additional screen real estate is invaluable for that. Being able to have my full timeline extended across the screen is amazing, and when I'm researching things for videos, I can seamlessly have multiple browser windows open for comparing things or taking notes without the need for a second monitor. Taking those advantages and combining it with one of the best looking IPS panels I've tested, this monitor is a content creator's dream. The fact that it's 75 Hz and supports FreeSync is just the icing on the cake for me. And at $12.99, it may seem pricey, but when you see all of the things it offers and how well it does them at this size of a display, I can completely justify that price tag to myself as someone that greatly benefits from having ultrawide. If that is out of your budget, Acer does offer the nearly identical XR382CK for $699. The big difference there being that it's 34 inches as opposed to 38, and it's 3440 by 1440. So really just a step down in terms of size and resolution, but seeing as the pixel density is basically the same, you're unlikely to really notice that drop in resolution. I will be sure to link to this monitor as well as the $699 version in the description below over to Amazon, so be sure to click on those if you are interested in either variant. But I'm going to get on out of here now. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're not already, and I'll catch you guys next time. Ta-ra.